They say everything's bigger in Texas. But after researching this state's geography, I found something that sounds absolutely impossible. Texas is so massive that if you started driving from the northwestern corner near Texline to the southeastern tip in Brownsville, you'd cover 895 miles. That's the exact same distance as driving from New York City to Chicago. Except you never left one state.
Well, how about this? There's a ranch in Texas that's bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island. Not a national park, not public land, a privately owned ranch. And here's where it gets stranger. Texas has 10 different climate zones according to the Köppen classification. You can wake up in a desert, drive through a swamp, and end your day in a pine forest that looks like you teleported to the Pacific Northwest. Welcome to Geography Explored. I'm here to take you on a deep dive into one of the most geographically extreme places on Earth. Over the next 40 minutes, we're counting down 50 facts about Texas that sound completely made up, but are 100% verified and true. From ancient ocean fossils to the world's busiest border crossing, from ghost rivers buried under the plains to a power grid that nearly killed thousands of people. Texas is a geographic masterclass in size, diversity, and absolute extremes. Let's explore it together. Fact 50. Texas could swallow entire European nations and still have room. Let's start with the obvious: size. Texas covers 268,596 square miles of territory. That number doesn't mean much until you start comparing it. You could fit France inside Texas, then add Germany, then throw in Belgium for good measure, and you'd still have space left over. The United Kingdom? Texas could hold it 2.8 times. That means England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland combined, nearly 3 times. If Texas were an independent country, which it was from 1836 to 1845, it would rank as the 40th largest nation on Earth, sitting comfortably between Zambia and Chile. And wait until you hear about the city that was completely destroyed in a single night, then rebuilt by literally lifting entire buildings into the air while people still lived inside them. We'll get to that. Fact 49. The King Ranch is bigger than Rhode Island. Speaking of size, let's talk about private property. The King Ranch, located in South Texas near Kingsville, sprawls across 825,000 acres. That's 1,289 square miles of land owned by a single family operation. To put that in perspective, the entire state of Rhode Island is 1,214 square miles. The King Ranch is literally bigger than a US state. You could fit the entirety of New York City inside this ranch and still have thousands of acres to spare. Founded in 1853 by Captain Richard King, this isn't just the largest ranch in Texas. It's one of the largest ranches in the entire world. The ranch has its own zip code, its own natural gas reserves, and a cattle operation so massive they've developed their own breed, the Santa Gertrudis, the first beef breed created in the Western Hemisphere. One family, one ranch, bigger than an entire state. That's not agriculture, that's an empire. Fact 48. It takes 12 hours to drive across Texas without stopping. Here's where Texas' size becomes real. If you want to drive from El Paso in far west Texas to Texarkana on the Louisiana border, you're looking at approximately 12 hours of non-stop driving. That's 801 miles across a single state. For context, you could drive from Paris, France, to Berlin, Germany in roughly the same time, or from London to Edinburgh and back. Here's the reality. You can drive for 12 hours across Texas and still be in Texas. Most countries don't take that long to cross. Texas isn't a state, it's a nation pretending to be one. Fact 47. Texas didn't pick a geography and stick with it. Texas said yes to everything. Most states pick a geography and commit. Texas said no. Texas has 367 miles of Gulf Coast shoreline featuring barrier islands, salt marshes, and sandy beaches. It has the Guadalupe Mountains, where Guadalupe Peak rises to 8,751 feet, the highest point in the state. West Texas contains the Chihuahuan Desert, one of the largest desert systems in North America. East Texas holds the Piney Woods, a dense forest ecosystem that produces some of the most humid conditions in the continental United States. Central Texas features the Hill Country, a limestone plateau with spring-fed rivers and dramatic elevation changes. And North Texas contains remnants of the Great Plains, flat grasslands that once supported massive bison herds. This diversity isn't an accident, it's geology, climate, and 280 million years of Earth's history compressed into one state. Texas is what happens when a continent can't decide what it wants to be, so it becomes everything at once.
46. The Texas Panhandle is so flat, it breaks your brain's sense of scale. The northern panhandle of Texas, particularly around Amarillo, is so flat that researchers compared its topography to an actual pancake. Using geographic information systems, scientists measured the Llano Estacado, or staked plains, and found it to be flatter than a pancake measured at the same scale. This isn't poetic exaggeration, it's math. The area has less than 100 feet of elevation change across hundreds of square miles. The Panhandle is so flat that 100 feet of elevation change counts as mountainous. This flatness is the result of millions of years of sediment deposition from ancient rivers flowing eastward from the Rocky Mountains. For early settlers, this flatness was disorienting and dangerous. There were no landmarks, no trees, no reference points. Pioneers would literally stake paths with wooden posts so they wouldn't get lost. Hence the name, Staked Plains. Today, this same flatness makes the region ideal for wind farms, which harvest the constant winds that blow unobstructed across the plains. When there's nothing to stop the wind never stops. Fact 45. Texas has 10 climate zones. 10. Most people think of Texas as hot and dry. That's only partially true and only in certain parts. Texas officially contains 10 distinct climate zones, according to the Köppen climate classification system. You've got humid subtropical in the east, semi-arid in the west, true desert in far west Texas, and even a touch of highland climate in the Guadalupe Mountains. This means Texas experiences nearly every weather pattern North America can produce, except Arctic conditions. East Texas gets over 56 inches of rain per year, more than Seattle. Far West Texas gets less than 8 inches, qualifying as a true desert. You can experience all 4 seasons in a single day in parts of the hill country. Later, I'll tell you about the mysterious lights in West Texas that scientists still can't fully explain. They've been appearing for over 140 years. This climate diversity creates biodiversity. Texas has more species of birds, bats, and reptiles than any other state. The varied climates provide habitat for creatures that would never coexist anywhere else. Fact 44. The Rio Grande defines the entire southern border, but rivers move. The Rio Grande, or Rio Bravo as it's known in Mexico, forms the entire 1,254-mile border between Texas and Mexico. This makes it one of the most significant international boundaries in the Western Hemisphere. But here's the problem.
Rivers move. The Rio Grande has changed course hundreds of times over the centuries, creating diplomatic nightmares. When a river shifts and leaves land on the opposite side, who owns it? This question has sparked treaties, legal battles, and even small territorial exchanges between the US and Mexico. In 1977, the US actually gave land back to Mexico. The Hawkon Tract, a 630-acre piece of land north of the river, was ceded to Mexico because the river had shifted and the land was technically on the Mexican side. It remains the only land the United States has voluntarily returned to Mexico since the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. Texas built a border on a river that refuses to stay in one place. That's like building a fence on quicksand and wondering why it keeps moving. Fact 43. Guadalupe Peak was once at the bottom of an ancient ocean. Guadalupe Peak, the highest point in Texas at 8,751 feet, has a secret. It's actually a fossilized reef from an ancient sea that covered West Texas roughly 265 million years ago during the Permian period. This ancient body of water, called the Permian Sea, was a warm, shallow marine environment teeming with life. Over millions of years, the shells and skeletons of marine organisms accumulated, forming massive limestone reefs. Then, tectonic forces uplifted these reefs thousands of feet into the air. Today, if you hike to the summit of Guadalupe Peak, you're standing on what was once the ocean floor. You can find fossilized sea creatures embedded in the rock beneath your boots. The entire Guadalupe Mountains National Park is essentially an exposed ancient reef system, one of the best preserved examples in the world. Coming up, the world's largest colony of bats. And when I say largest, I mean 20 million bats emerging from a single cave every evening. It's visible on weather radar. Texas turned an ocean into a mountain. That's the kind of geological flex that takes 265 million years to pull off. Fact 42. Texas has more than 4,000 caves. Beneath the surface of Texas lies a hidden world. The state contains over 4,000 documented caves, many of them carved into the limestone bedrock of central and west Texas. These caves formed through a process called karstification, where slightly acidic groundwater slowly dissolved the limestone over millions of years. Natural Bridge Caverns, located near San Antonio, features rooms large enough to hold the U.S. Capitol building. Longhorn Cavern State Park contains miles of passages carved by an ancient underground river. Some caves contain delicate formations of stalactites, stalagmites, and flowstone that have been growing for tens of thousands of years. But the caves aren't just geological curiosities, they're habitats. Bracken Cave, near San Antonio, hosts the largest colony of bats in the world. An estimated 15 to 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats emerge from this single cave every evening during the summer, creating a spectacle visible on weather radar. 20 million bats. One cave. Every night they eat 200 tons of insects. Texas has an air force, and it runs on wings. Fact 41. The Chisos Mountains are the only mountain range entirely within a national park. Big Bend National Park in far west Texas is already remote. But within it lies something even more unusual. The Chisos Mountains, the only mountain range in the United States located entirely within the boundaries of a national park. These mountains rise abruptly from the Chihuahuan desert floor, creating a sky island ecosystem. The higher elevations are cooler and wetter, supporting pine and oak forests, while the surrounding lowlands remain pure desert. This creates habitat for species found nowhere else in the US, including the Colima warbler, a bird that nests exclusively in these mountains. The Chisos formed from volcanic activity roughly 35 million years ago. Today, they're an eroded remnant of that ancient volcanic field, standing as proof that West Texas wasn't always flat desert. It was once a land of fire.
Fact 40. Palo Duro Canyon is the second largest canyon system in the United States by volume and area. Everyone knows the Grand Canyon. Almost nobody knows about Palo Duro Canyon, located in the Texas Panhandle near Amarillo. At 120 miles long and up to 20 miles wide, with a maximum depth of 800 feet, it's the second largest canyon system in the United States. The canyon was carved by the Prairie Dogtown fork of the Red River over the past 90 million years. The exposed rock layers reveal a stunning geological timeline, with bands of red, orange, and white sediment representing different epochs of Earth's history. Early Spanish explorers named it Palo Duro, meaning hard wood, after the juniper trees growing along the canyon rim. For the Comanche and Kiowa tribes, this canyon provided shelter, water, and protection from the harsh plains above. Texas hid a canyon the size of a small state in the flattest part of the state. That's the geographic equivalent of hiding an elephant under a napkin. Fact 39. The Balcones Fault created the Texas Hill Country. Central Texas is defined by a dramatic geological boundary called the Balcones Fault Zone. This fault line runs roughly from Del Rio through Austin and up toward Dallas, marking the place where the flat coastal plains suddenly rise into the limestone hills of the Edwards Plateau. This fault created the Texas Hill Country, a region of rolling limestone hills, spring-fed rivers, and dramatic elevation changes. The fault also created a unique hydrogeological feature, the Edwards Aquifer, one of the most productive aquifers in the world. Springs along the fault line, including Barton Springs in Austin and Comal Springs in New Braunfels, gush millions of gallons of crystal-clear water daily. These springs were so reliable that they became focal points for human settlement dating back thousands of years. Today, they're still the primary water source for millions of Texans. The Balcones Fault is why Austin exists. It's why San Antonio has water. It's why the hill country looks the way it does. One crack in the earth shaped everything. Fact 38. Texas has 254 counties. Why? Because Texas decided that if you couldn't ride a horse to your county seat in one day, you needed another county. Texas is divided into 254 counties. That's more than any other state. Georgia comes in second with 159. The reason goes back to an old Texas law that required every resident to be within a day's horseback ride of their county seat. Some of these counties are enormous. Brewster County in West Texas covers 6,192 square miles, larger than Connecticut and Rhode Island combined. Yet it has a population of only about 9,000 people. Other counties are tiny and bizarre. Loving County, also in West Texas, is the least populated county in the United States, with a population that hovers around 100 people. Yet it still maintains a full county government, courthouse, and sheriff. And there's one county with only 100 people,
We'll talk about why it still has a full government later. The county is larger than some small nations, but contains almost no one. Texas took local government and pushed it to an absurd extreme. Fact 37. The Llano Uplift exposes some of the oldest rocks in North America. In the heart of the Texas hill country lies the Llano Uplift, a dome of ancient Precambrian granite and gneiss that's over 1 billion years old. This rock is among the oldest exposed surface rock in North America. The uplift occurred when tectonic forces pushed this ancient basement rock upward, eroding away the younger sedimentary layers on top. Today, you can visit Enchanted Rock State Natural Area near Fredericksburg and climb a massive pink granite dome that formed deep underground when dinosaurs didn't even exist yet. Geologists love the Llano Uplift because it provides a rare window into the deep geologic past. The rocks here are older than complex life on Earth. They formed in an era when the planet was unrecognizable, and they've survived over 1 billion years of erosion, uplift, and continental drift. You can stand on rock older than fish, older than trees, older than almost anything. That's not geology, that's time travel. Fact 36. Caddo Lake is the only natural lake in Texas. Every other lake is fake. Texas has hundreds of lakes, but here's the shocking truth: only one of them is natural. Caddo Lake, straddling the Texas-Louisiana border, is the only naturally occurring lake in the state. Every other lake in Texas, from Lake Travis to Lake Texoma, is a reservoir created by damming a river. Caddo Lake formed when a massive logjam on the Red River, called the Great Raft, backed up water into the bayous of East Texas. The lake is a maze of bald cypress trees draped in Spanish moss, creating an eerie, primordial landscape that feels more like Louisiana than Texas. The lake is also ecologically unique, supporting species like alligators, paddlefish, and over 70 species of fish. It's a remnant ecosystem, a glimpse of what East Texas looked like before humans reshaped the landscape with dams and reservoirs. Texas has one natural lake. One. Every other body of water you think is a lake is a lie. Texas dammed every river it could find and called the result scenic. Fact 35. The Ogallala Aquifer beneath the Panhandle is running dry, and when it does, the breadbasket of America goes with it. Beneath the flat plains of the Texas Panhandle lies one of the world's largest underground water sources, the Ogallala Aquifer. This massive aquifer stretches from South Dakota to Texas, holding water deposited during the last ice age, roughly 10,000 years ago. For decades, Texas farmers have pumped this water to irrigate crops, transforming the arid plains into one of the most productive agricultural regions on Earth. But there's a problem. The aquifer is being depleted faster than it can recharge. In some areas of the Panhandle, the water table has dropped over 100 feet. Wells that once flowed freely now run dry. Scientists estimate that at current usage rates, significant portions of the Texas Ogallala could be depleted within 50 years. The American breadbasket has a ticking clock. When the water runs out, the food stops growing. This isn't just a Texas problem, it's a looming agricultural crisis for the entire nation. Fact 34. The Galveston Hurricane of 1900 remains the deadliest natural disaster in US history, and the city rebuilt by lifting buildings into the air. On September 8, 1900, a Category 4 hurricane slammed into Galveston, Texas. The storm surge rose between 8 and 15 feet, swallowing the barrier island city. An estimated 6,000 to 12,000 people died, making it the deadliest natural disaster in United States history. Galveston at the time was the largest city in Texas and one of the wealthiest cities in the nation. The hurricane destroyed that in a single night. In the aftermath, survivors built a massive seawall and razed the entire city by pumping sand underneath the buildings. Some structures were lifted over 10 feet into the air while still occupied. Imagine living in a house while it's been jacked up 10 feet. Your morning coffee at ground level, your dinner 10 feet in the air. That's what Galveston did. The geography of Galveston made it vulnerable. As a low-lying barrier island with a maximum elevation of less than 9 feet, it had no protection from storm surge. The 1900 hurricane taught Texas a brutal lesson about the power of the Gulf and the vulnerability of coastal geography. Fact 33. The Tees River died millions of years ago, but never stopped giving life. Long before the modern rivers of Texas existed, an enormous river called the Tees River flowed across the state. This ancient waterway was comparable in size to the modern Ohio River, draining the ancestral Rocky Mountains and carving deep valleys across Texas. Then the Ice Ages came. Glacial activity to the north rerouted the drainage, and sediment buried the old valley systems. Today, the Tees River is gone from the surface, but its path remains as a buried valley filled with water-bearing sand and gravel. This buried valley acts as a giant underground aquifer, feeding springs and wells across central and west Texas. Geologists can map the ancient river channel using ground-penetrating radar and well data, revealing a ghost river that still influences water resources millions of years after it stopped flowing on the surface. Texas is literally drinking from a dead river. A ghost river that died millions of years ago but never stopped giving life. Fact 32. Texas leads the United States in wind energy production because the wind never stops. When you think of Texas energy, you probably think of oil. But Texas is also the wind energy capital of America. The state produces more wind power than any other state, generating over 40,000 megawatts of wind energy, enough to power millions of homes. Why is Texas so windy? Geography. The flat plains of West Texas and the Panhandle provide unobstructed wind corridors where air masses from the Gulf of Mexico collide with continental air masses. These constant, strong winds make the region ideal for wind farms. The scale is staggering. Driving through West Texas, you'll see thousands of wind turbines stretching to the horizon, their blades slowly turning in the relentless wind. Texas now generates more wind energy than entire countries. But Texas's real power story is coming up. The state runs its own electrical grid, completely separate from the rest of America. That independence nearly killed people. It's a strange reversal. The state that built its wealth on fossil fuels is now leading the renewable energy revolution.
Fact 31. The Permian Basin holds one of the world's largest oil reserves and runs on compressed ancient life. Speaking of energy, let's talk about oil. The Permian Basin, located in West Texas and southeastern New Mexico, is one of the most productive oil fields on the planet. Discovered in the 1920s, it's been producing oil for over a century and shows no signs of slowing down. Modern fracking technology has unlocked previously unreachable oil trapped in shale formations, leading to a second boom.
The Permian Basin now produces over 5 million barrels of oil per day, making it comparable to entire countries like Iraq or Kuwait. The basin gets its name from the Permian period, the same era when the ancient reef systems that became the Guadalupe Mountains were forming. That ancient sea deposited the organic material that, over millions of years, transformed into the oil that powers modern civilization. West Texas is literally running on compressed ancient life. Every gallon of gasoline is 265 million years of pressure and heat, transforming dead sea creatures into liquid energy. Fact 30. Big Bend is one of the least visited and most remote national parks, and that's exactly why it's perfect. Big Bend National Park sits in the elbow, where the Rio Grande bends sharply north before turning back south, forming the border with Mexico. It's one of the most remote and least visited national parks in the United States, and for good reason. It's hard to get to. The nearest major city is over 200 miles away. Cell phone service is non-existent. Summers are brutally hot, with temperatures regularly exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Winters can be surprisingly cold. Water is scarce. Wildlife includes mountain lions, black bears, and rattlesnakes. But for those who make the journey, Big Bend offers something rare: true wilderness. The night skies are among the darkest in the continental US. The landscape is raw and ancient. The silence is profound. It's a place where you can stand on the rim of the Chisos Mountains and see 100 miles in every direction without a single human structure in sight. That's not a park. That's freedom. Fact 29. The Rio Grande runs dry in some sections because Texas and Mexico drank it all. The Rio Grande is one of the great rivers of North America, flowing nearly 2,000 miles from the Colorado Rockies to the Gulf of Mexico. But here's the disturbing truth. In some sections of Texas, it doesn't flow at all. Over-allocation of water, drought, and climate change have reduced the mighty Rio Grande to a dry riverbed in some areas, particularly near El Paso and Presidio. Farms, cities, and reservoirs on both sides of the border extract so much water that the river sometimes disappears entirely before reaching the Gulf. This isn't just an environmental crisis, it's a geopolitical one. The Rio Grande is an international boundary. When the river stops flowing, what defines the border? Dry riverbeds create dust storms, destroy ecosystems, and eliminate the natural barrier that has defined the Texas-Mexico border for centuries. Texas and Mexico drank an entire river. Now they're arguing over the dust. Fact 28. The Texas State Capitol building is taller than the US Capitol because Texas pride is taller than the federal government. The Texas State Capitol in Austin stands 308 feet tall, making it 15 feet taller than the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. This wasn't an accident. When Texas built its capital in the 1880s, the state legislature specifically required it to be taller than the national capital. Why? Texas pride. The state wanted a physical symbol of its size, power, and independence. The building is constructed from sunset red granite, quarried from Granite Mountain near Marble Falls. The dome is topped with a Goddess of Liberty statue holding a gilded star. The Capitol sits on a hill overlooking downtown Austin, visible from miles away. It's a deliberate statement. Texas is big, Texas is proud, and Texas will not be overshadowed, not even by Washington.
Fact 27. Texas was an independent country for 9 years and never forgot it. From 1836 to 1845, Texas was the Republic of Texas, a fully independent nation with its own president, Congress, currency, and military. The Republic was born after Texas won independence from Mexico at the Battle of San Jacinto. For 9 years, Texas functioned as a sovereign country. It had diplomatic relations with France, the Netherlands, and the United States. It had its own navy. It even fought a brief war with Mexico in 1842. But the Republic struggled financially and faced constant threats from Mexico. In 1845, Texas agreed to annexation by the United States, becoming the 28th state. This decision would spark the Mexican-American War and reshape the entire Southwest. The legacy of the Republic remains visible everywhere in Texas, from the Lone Star flag to the fierce independent streak that defines the state's identity. Texas was a nation. It became a state. It never stopped thinking like a nation. Fact 26. The Alamo sits in the middle of downtown San Antonio, trapped in time. The Alamo, site of the famous 1836 battle, is one of the most recognizable landmarks in Texas. But here's what's weird. It sits in the middle of downtown San Antonio, surrounded by hotels, shops, and tourist attractions. This wasn't always the case. When the battle occurred, the Alamo was a remote Spanish mission on the outskirts of a small frontier town. As San Antonio grew, the city eventually swallowed the site. Today, the Alamo feels strangely out of place, an 18th century mission trapped in a 21st century urban environment. The Spanish originally built the mission in 1718 as part of a network of missions designed to convert and control the indigenous population. Its thick limestone walls and defensible position made it a natural fortress. During the Texas Revolution, 189 Texan defenders held the Alamo against a Mexican army of thousands for 13 days before being overrun. Remember, the Alamo became the rallying cry that eventually led to Texas independence. Today, it's a shrine surrounded by a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum and a Hard Rock cafe. History is weird. Fact 25. Houston has no zoning laws, which explains everything about Houston. Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States and the only major American city with no zoning laws. That means there are no rules preventing a factory from being built next to a school, or a nightclub next to a church, or a mansion next to a landfill. This lack of zoning creates a chaotic urban landscape that's uniquely Houston. Strip malls appear in residential neighborhoods. Industrial facilities sit next to upscale homes. The city sprawls endlessly in every direction with little planning or structure. Why no zoning? Houstonians historically valued property rights above all else. If you own land, the thinking goes, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. This philosophy has created a city that's affordable and business-friendly, but also prone to flooding, traffic nightmares, and jarring juxtapositions of land use. Houston is what happens when you give capitalism a city and say, do whatever you want. The result is chaos, innovation, and a strip club next to a daycare. Fact 24. Austin is the fastest-growing large city in the United States, and growth became its own trap. Austin has added over 1 million residents since 2000, transforming from a quirky college town into a tech hub. The geography that made it attractive, springs, hills, and mild climate, now constrains it. The city can't expand fast enough. Housing prices have skyrocketed, traffic is unbearable. Keep Austin weird feels like a joke as California money reshapes the city. Austin's geography made it desirable. Now that same geography, hemmed in by hills and water,
is choking it. Success became its own trap.
Fact 23. El Paso is closer to Los Angeles than to Houston, which tells you everything about Texas' size. Texas is so large that parts of it are closer to other states' major cities than to other parts of Texas. El Paso, on the far western tip of the state, is 746 miles from Houston, but it's only 710 miles from Los Angeles, California. This geographic reality creates distinct regional identities. El Paso has more in common with New Mexico and Mexico than with East Texas. The city operates on Mountain Time, not Central Time like most of Texas. Spanish is heard as often as English. The cuisine, architecture, and culture are Southwestern, not Southern. El Paso sits in the Chihuahuan Desert at the base of the Franklin Mountains, where Texas, New Mexico, and Mexico meet. It's one of the safest large cities in America, despite sitting directly across the border from Ciudad Juarez, once one of the most dangerous cities in the world. El Paso proves that Texas is too big to have a single identity. It's a dozen different places forced to share one flag. Fact 22. The Big Thicket is one of the most biodiverse areas in North America, where desert plants grow next to swamp species. The Big Thicket National Preserve in southeast Texas is a biological crossroads where 9 distinct ecosystems converge. Desert plants grow next to swamp species. Cacti and orchids exist in the same preserve. This concentration of biodiversity earned it the nickname the biological crossroads of North America. The Big Thicket is where the eastern forests meet the western plains, where the southern coastal systems meet the northern temperate zones. This creates habitat overlaps that support an incredible variety of life. Over 60 species of mammals, 300 species of birds, and countless reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates. Early settlers feared the Big Thicket, a dense, tangled forest filled with swamps, dangerous wildlife, and easy places to get lost. Outlaws hid here. The forest was so thick that entire communities lived in semi-isolation. Today, only a fraction of the original Big Thicket remains, but the preserve protects these remnant ecosystems and the incredible biodiversity they support. It's where Texas forgot to pick one ecosystem and accidentally created all of them. Fact 21. Texas has more species of bats than any other state, and 20 million of them live in one cave. Texas is home to 33 of the 47 bat species found in the United States, more than any other state. This diversity ranges from tiny Mexican free-tailed bats to large hoary bats with wingspans over a foot wide. Why so many bats? Geography and climate. Texas's varied ecosystems provide diverse habitats. The warm climate supports insect populations that bats feed on. And Texas has caves, lots of them, which bats need for roosting. The most spectacular concentration is at Bracken Cave near San Antonio, which hosts the largest colony of bats on Earth. Between 15 and 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats emerge from this single cave every evening during summer, creating a living tornado of wings visible on weather radar. This nightly exodus consumes an estimated 200 tons of insects, providing natural pest control for Texas agriculture. Texas doesn't need pesticides. It has an air force of 20 million bats. Fact 20. The Trans-Pecos is the only true desert in Texas, and it's beautiful in a way that lush landscapes can never match. When people think Texas desert, they often picture the entire state. In reality, only the Trans-Pecos region of far west Texas qualifies as a true desert. This area, west of the Pecos River, is part of the Chihuahuan Desert, the largest desert in North America. The Trans-Pecos receives less than 12 inches of rain per year.
The landscape is harsh. Rocky mountains, creosote flats, and arroyos that flood violently during rare thunderstorms. Temperatures can swing 50 degrees between day and night. Water is scarce and precious. Yet life persists. Desert bighorn sheep scale the cliffs. Roadrunners hunt lizards. Cacti bloom spectacularly after rain. The desert teaches a lesson. Life finds a way, even in the most hostile environments. The Trans-Pecos is raw, unforgiving, and beautiful in a way that lush landscapes can never match. Fact 19. Terlingua died, then came back as a ghost town that's alive. Terlingua, in far west Texas near Big Bend, was a thriving quicksilver mining town with 2,000 residents in the early 1900s. Then the mines closed. The town died. Literally. By the 1940s, Terlingua was abandoned. But something strange happened. The ruins remained, the cemetery, the old theatre, the mining buildings, and slowly artists, drifters, and eccentrics moved into the abandoned structures. Today, Terlingua is a ghost town that's alive. It has no government, no official population count, and no rules. People live in ruins. The annual chili cook-off attracts thousands. You can buy a beer in a building with no roof. It's what happens when geography is so remote and harsh that even death can't fully kill a town. Terlingua exists in a liminal space between dead and alive, between past and present, between civilization and wilderness. It's the most Texas thing imaginable, too stubborn to die even when it should. Fact 18. Padre Island is the longest undeveloped barrier island in the world, and it's still wild. Padre Island National Seashore protects 70 miles of barrier island along the Texas Gulf Coast, making it the longest undeveloped barrier island in the world. Unlike the developed resort sections to the north and south, this stretch remains wild. The island is all sand, dunes, and wind. The only way to explore most of it is by four-wheel drive vehicle, driving directly on the beach. There are no roads, no buildings, nothing but sand, sea, and sky. Padre Island is crucial habitat for endangered Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, which nest on these beaches. It's also a vital stopover for migratory birds traveling the Central Flyway. The island demonstrates what the Texas coast looked like before development, an endless ribbon of sand constantly reshaped by wind and waves, harsh but essential to the Gulf ecosystem. Fact 17. The hill country has one of the highest concentrations of springs in North America. The Texas hill country is riddled with springs. Barton Springs in Austin pumps 50 million gallons of water daily. Comal Springs in New Braunfels is the largest spring in Texas and one of the largest in the Southwest. Jacob's Well, near Wimberley, descends 140 feet into an underground cave system. These springs emerge where the Balcones Fault forces water from the Edwards Aquifer to the surface. The water is incredibly pure, filtered through hundreds of feet of limestone over decades or centuries. Springs maintain a constant temperature year-round, usually around 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. For thousands of years, these springs were focal points for human civilization. Native Americans camped near them. Spanish missions were built around them. Modern Texas cities grew up beside them. The springs are why the hill country could support dense populations despite the semi-arid climate. Even today, millions depend on the Edwards Aquifer and its springs for drinking water.
Fact 16. Enchanted Rock is a massive pink granite dome older than fish. Rising 425 feet above the hill country near Fredericksburg, Enchanted Rock is a massive pink granite dome covering 640 acres. It's one of the largest batholiths, granite formations exposed at the surface, in the United States. The rock formed over 1 billion years ago, deep underground, when magma cooled slowly into granite. Tectonic uplift brought it to the surface, and erosion stripped away the overlying rock, revealing the dome. The granite expands and contracts with temperature changes, causing sheets of rock to peel off, a process called exfoliation. Native Americans considered the rock sacred, believing spirits inhabited it. Modern visitors report strange sounds emanating from the rock at night, likely caused by the granite cooling and contracting. On a clear night, standing on top of Enchanted Rock, you can see millions of stars, the lights of Fredericksburg in the distance, and nothing but dark hill country stretching to the horizon. You can stand on rock older than fish, older than trees, older than almost anything. That's not geology, that's time travel. Fact 15. The Brazos River is the longest river entirely within Texas, and it's been tamed. The Brazos River flows 1,280 miles from the eastern New Mexico border to the Gulf of Mexico, making it the longest river whose entire course lies within Texas. The name Brazos is short for Brazos de Dios, Arms of God, supposedly named by Spanish explorers who found the river after a desperate search for water. The Brazos drains a watershed covering much of central and north Texas. It's a working river lined with reservoirs that provide water to millions of Texans. But it's also a reminder of Texas geography. Long, powerful rivers that drain vast landscapes and shape human settlement patterns. The river's geography has changed dramatically. What was once a wild, flooding menace has been tamed with dams and levees. The trade-off? Flood control and reliable water, but at the cost of the natural river ecosystem and the yearly floods that once nourished the floodplains. Texas conquered its rivers, then wondered why the fish disappeared. Fact 14. Fort Worth was the last stop before the frontier, and it never forgot. In the 1800s, Fort Worth marked the edge of American civilization. Beyond Fort Worth lay the frontier, Comanche territory, vast grasslands, and the unknown West. The city's motto, "Where the West begins," reflects this history. Fort Worth grew as a military outpost protecting settlers and a supply point for cattle drives heading north. The geography made sense. It sat on a bluff overlooking the Trinity River, providing water, defense, and a natural stopping point before the long journey north. Today, Fort Worth retains that Western identity even as it's merged with Dallas into a massive metroplex. The Fort Worth stockyards still host twice-daily cattle drives. The city celebrates its cowboy heritage while also being home to world-class museums and a thriving economy. It's a bridge between Texas past and present. The last place you could get a drink before heading into hell. Fact 13. The piney woods of East Texas feel nothing like the rest of the state. East Texas is a different world. The piney woods, a dense forest ecosystem, covers the eastern third of the state. This isn't the Texas of movies and imagination. There are no deserts, no cowboys, no wide-open spaces, just trees, humidity,
and red clay soil. The piney woods are part of a larger forest system stretching from East Texas through Louisiana, Arkansas, and into the south. The climate is humid subtropical, receiving over 50 inches of rain per year. Pine trees tower over understory hardwoods. Swamps and bayous wind through the forest. Culturally and geographically, East Texas has more in common with the Deep South than with the rest of Texas. The accent changes. The architecture changes. Even the food changes. It's a reminder that Texas is too large and diverse to have a single identity. East Texas is basically Louisiana that got lost. Fact 12. A continental divide runs through an invisible line in the Panhandle. Near the town of Akron in the Texas Panhandle, there's an almost imperceptible rise in elevation. You can't see it, you can't feel it, but it's one of the most important lines in Texas geography. This is a continental divide. Water falling north of this line flows toward the Gulf of Mexico via the Red River. Water falling south flows toward the Gulf via the Brazos or Colorado rivers. There's no mountain ridge, no dramatic cliff, just a gentle rise in the flat plains that determines whether water goes north or south on its 800-mile journey to the sea. Stand on this divide, and you're standing on the edge of two watersheds, two drainage systems, two different routes to the same ocean. One raindrop goes left, another goes right. Geography decided their fate. Fact 11. Texarkana exists in two states simultaneously, and nobody knows how to govern it. Texarkana is one of the strangest cities in America. It literally straddles the Texas-Arkansas border, existing in two states at once. The state line runs down the middle of the post office. The town's name is a portmanteau, Tex-Ark-Ana, combining Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. This geographic oddity creates bizarre situations. The city has two governments, two sets of laws, and two tax systems. A restaurant on one side of the street operates under Texas law. Across the street, Arkansas law applies. Residents joke about which side of town they sleep on. Texarkana exists because of geography. It grew where the Cairo and Fulton Railroad crossed the Texas-Arkansas border, making it a natural transportation hub. The dual state identity became a feature, not a bug, giving the city a unique character and endless marketing opportunities. Fact 10. The stockyards of Fort Worth were once the largest livestock market in the Southwest. The Fort Worth stockyards, established in 1866, became the center of the Texas cattle industry. At its peak in the 1940s, the stockyards processed over 1 million head of cattle annually, making it the largest livestock market in the Southwest. The geography made Fort Worth ideal. It sat at the intersection of multiple rail lines and at the edge of the Great Plains grazing lands. Cattle could be driven from South Texas, fattened on the plains, then shipped north or east to markets. Today, the stockyards are a historic district, but twice a day, real cowboys still drive a herd of longhorns down Exchange Avenue, keeping the tradition alive. The stockyards represent a time when geography, animals, and human enterprise combined to build Texas wealth. Fact 9. Texas contains the world's largest state fair because excess is tradition. The State Fair of Texas, held annually in Dallas, is the largest state fair in the United States by attendance, drawing over 2 million visitors. The fair is famous for fried food, Big Tex, a 55-foot-tall cowboy statue, and the Red River rivalry football game between Texas and Oklahoma. But the fair is more than entertainment. It's a celebration of Texas geography and agriculture. Exhibits showcase cotton, cattle, oil equipment, and Texas history. It's where urban Texas meets rural Texas, where the state's agricultural heritage collides with its modern identity. The fairground itself occupies 277 acres in Dallas, larger than many towns. Its size and excess perfectly capture the Texas spirit. Bigger, louder, more than anywhere else. Fact 8. The Nature's River is one of the few remaining free-flowing rivers in Texas. Most Texas rivers have been dammed, diverted, or channelized. The Nature's River in East Texas is a rare exception. It flows relatively freely for over 400 miles from its headwaters to the Gulf, making it one of the few major Texas rivers that still resembles its natural state. The Nature's flows through the piney woods, draining the forested landscape of East Texas. Its dark, tannic-stained water flows slowly through swamps and bottomland forests. Alligators sun on logs. Bald cypress trees draped with Spanish moss line the banks. The Nature's demonstrates what Texas rivers once looked like before dams and development. It's a reminder that not everything needs to be controlled or engineered. Sometimes the best geography is the geography left alone. Fact 7. The Sabine River forms the Texas-Louisiana border, and like all river borders, it creates chaos. The Sabine River creates the eastern boundary between Texas and Louisiana for much of its length. Like the Rio Grande in the south, the Sabine is a river border, which creates similar problems. Rivers move. Borders shouldn't. Over the years, the Sabine has shifted course, creating islands of Texas on the Louisiana side and vice versa. This has led to jurisdictional headaches, court cases, and confusion about exactly where Texas ends and Louisiana begins. The Sabine also marks a geographic transition. East of the river is Louisiana, culturally and ecologically southern. West of the river is Texas, with all its own distinct identity. The river is a boundary in every sense: political, ecological, and cultural. Fact 6. Waco sits on the Balcones Fault, which is why the city exists. Waco, located in central Texas along the Brazos River, sits directly on the Balcones Fault. This geographic positioning has shaped the city's history and identity. The fault creates dramatic bluffs overlooking the river, providing defensive positions that made Waco an important settlement site. The fault also made Waco a natural crossroads. The elevated terrain provided easy river crossings before bridges existed. Native Americans, Spanish explorers, and American settlers all recognized Waco's strategic geography. Today, Waco is known for Baylor University and Chip and Joanna Gaines. But long before Fixer Upper, an ancient fault line decided this city's fate. Geography doesn't care about HGTV. Fact 5. The Marfa Lights remain an unexplained phenomenon that defies explanation. Near the small West Texas town of Marfa, mysterious lights appear regularly in the night sky. These Marfa lights, or Marfa ghost lights, have been reported since the 1880s. They appear as glowing orbs that move, split, merge, and disappear. Scientists have proposed explanations: atmospheric reflections, car headlights, swamp gas, or temperature inversions creating mirages. But no explanation fully accounts for all the sightings, especially historical ones predating automobiles. The lights have become part of Marfa's identity. There's an official viewing area. Tourists come specifically to watch for them. Whether natural phenomenon or mass hallucination, the Marfa lights add mystery to an already strange corner of Texas, where the desert plays tricks on the eye and the imagination. Fact 4. Texas has 3 of the 10 largest cities in the United States, and they define the state. Texas contains 3 of America's 10 largest cities: Houston, 4th as of 2025, San Antonio, 7th, and Dallas, 9th. No other state has more than 1 city in the top 10. This concentration of population demonstrates Texas's economic power and growth. These cities represent different aspects of Texas geography. Houston dominates the coastal plains and petrochemical industry. San Antonio sits at the edge of the hill country, blending Mexican and American culture. Dallas commands the North Texas plains as a banking and technology hub. The triangle formed by these 3 cities contains a majority of Texas's population and economic activity. The distances between them, 200 to 300 miles, are bridged by highways carrying endless traffic. These cities have driven Texas from a rural agricultural state to an urban economic powerhouse. Fact 3. The cross timbers divided Texas into 2 worlds that shaped everything. Before modern development, a band of dense forest called the cross timbers ran north-south through central Texas. This forest created a natural boundary that divided the state into 2 distinct regions: the settled, forested east and the open, dangerous west. The cross timbers were nearly impenetrable. Early settlers described riding for days through thick woodland of post oak and blackjack oak. The forest was too dense for cattle drives and difficult to farm. It became a natural dividing line between agricultural East Texas and ranching West Texas. Today, most of the cross timbers have been cleared, but remnants survive. The forest's historical role as a dividing line shaped settlement patterns, land use, and even modern political boundaries. Geography creates lines that persist long after the physical features disappear. Fact 2. Texas has its own Pledge of Allegiance because being Texan is as much an identity as being American. Texas is the only state with its own Pledge of Allegiance. Texas schoolchildren recite both the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. This isn't just symbolism. It reflects a distinct Texas identity rooted in the state's geography and history. Texas was a nation. Texas is enormous. Texas has distinct regions that often feel like separate places. The pledge is a reminder that being Texan is as much an identity as being American. The geography of Texas, its size and diversity, created this separate identity. When you can drive for 12 hours and never leave your state, when your state is larger than most countries, when your history includes independence, you develop a different relationship with place. Texas pride isn't just ego. It's a recognition of geographic and historical reality. Fact 1. Texas runs on its own electrical grid, isolated from the rest of America, and that independence nearly killed thousands. The number 1 geographic fact that defines Texas: the state operates its own electrical grid called ERCOT, completely separate from the rest of the United States. While the continental U.S. is divided into the eastern and western interconnections, Texas stands alone. About 90% of the state runs on this independent grid. Why? Pure Texas independence. By keeping electricity within state borders, Texas avoids federal regulations that govern interstate power transmission. But geographic isolation has consequences. Texas can't easily import power during emergencies. In February 2021, a winter storm exposed this vulnerability. The grid failed. Millions lost power. Temperatures dropped below zero. People froze to death in their homes. The very independence that Texans celebrated became a death trap. When you isolate yourself geographically and politically, you're on your own when disaster strikes. That's the real story of Texas geography. It's big enough to stand alone, proud enough to demand independence, and sometimes isolated enough to pay the price. Texas chose to be separate. For better and worse, that choice is written into every power line, every county border, every mile of that 1,254-mile river border with Mexico. Texas is a nation that became a state, but never stopped thinking like a nation. And that's what makes Texas geography unlike anywhere else on Earth. From buried ocean reefs to modern oil empires, from 10 climate zones to 254 counties, from ancient rivers to independent power grids, Texas is a geographic masterclass in size, diversity, and extremes. We've covered 50 facts, but honestly, we've barely scratched the surface. Texas has 267,000 square miles of stories, each region with its own geography, history, and identity. The Panhandle is different from the Hill Country. East Texas is different from West Texas. The coast is different from the desert. That's the real lesson of Texas geography. There is no one Texas. There's a collection of landscapes forced to share a single border, united only by pride, history, and that Lone Star flag. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments below. Are you from Texas? Tell us which region and what geographic feature defines where you live. Next week on Geography Explored, we're taking the same deep dive into California. 50 facts about a state with the highest and lowest points in the continental US, a coastline longer than most countries, and geography so extreme it makes Texas look tame. If you want to explore it with me, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is Geography Explored. Until next time, keep exploring.